Hello and welcome to Short Story Scene. I'm your host, the storyteller, and here we have a tale called Inferno by Dante Alighieri. Canto 17. Behold the monster with the pointed tail, who cleaves the hills, and breaketh the walls of the weapons. Behold him, he infecteth on all the world. Thus unto me my guide began to say, and beckoning him that he should come to shore, and near to the confine of the trodden marble, and that the uncleanly image of deceit came up and thrust ashore its head and bust, but on the border did not drag its tail. The face was as the face of just man, and the semblance outward as so benign, and of the serpent all the trunk beside. 2 paws it had, hairy unto the armpits, and the back and the breast, and both the sides it had, depicted over its noises and with shields, and with the colors more groundwork and embroidery. Never in cloth did Tartars make, nor Turks, nor were such tissues by Arnachini laid. And sometimes wearies lie upon the shore, and part are in the water, part on land. And as among the guzzling Germans there, the beaver plants himself to wage its war, so that the vile monster lay upon the border, which is of stone and shutteth in the sand. His tail was wholly quivering in the void, contorting upwards an envenomed fork, that in the guise of scorpion armed its point. The guide said, Now perforce must turn aside our way a little, even to the beast malevolent that yonder coacheth him. We therefore on the right side descended, and make 10 steps upon the outer verge, and completely to avoid the sand and flame. And after we are to come to him, I see, a little farther up upon the sand, people sitting near the whole howl place, and said to me, that Master, so that the full experience of his round thou bear away. Now go and see what their condition is. There let thy conversation be concise. Till thou returnest, I will speak with him, and that he concede to us his stalwart shoulders. This farther still upon the outermost head of the 7th circle, all alone I went, where sat the melancholy folk. Out of the eyes was gushing forth their woe. This way, that way, they helped them with their hands, now from the flames and now from the hot soil. Not otherwise in the summer do the dogs. Now with the foot, now with the muzzle, when by fleas or flies or gadflies they are bitten. When I had turned mine eyes upon the faces of some, on whom the dolorous flame is falling, not one of them I knew, but I perceived that from the neck of each there hung a pouch, which certain color had and certain blazon, and thereupon it seems their eyes are feeding. And as I gazed round me come along them, upon a yellow pouch I saw, and had the face of posture of a lion. Proceeding then the current of my sight, another of them saw I, red as blood, display a goose more white than butter is, and one with an azure sorrow engraved emblazoned had his little pouch of white, said unto me, What dost thou in the moat? Now get thee gone, and since thou art still alive, now that the neighbor of mine, Vitalino, will have his seat here on my left hand side. A pattern am I in these Florentines, met full many time in the thunder in mine ears, exclaiming, Come to the sovereign Calvary. He who shall bring the satchel with the 3 goats, and then twist his mouth, and forth he thrusted his tongue like an oxen that licks his nose, and fearing lest my longer stay may vex him who had warned me not to tarry long, and backward I turned me for those who weary souls. I found my guide who had already mounted upon the back of the wild animal, and said to me, Now be both strong and bold. Now we descend by stairways such as these. Mount thou in front, and I will be midway, so that the tail may have no power to harm thee. Such as he is who has so near the ague of quarantine that his nails are blue already, and trembles all but looking at the shade. Even such became I at those proffered words, and the shame in me in his menaces produced, which maketh servants strong before good master. I seated me upon those monstrous shoulders, I wished to say, and yet the voice came not, and I believed. Take heed that thou embrace me. But he who other times had rescued me in other peril, so I had mounted, within his arms encircled and sustained me, and said, Now, Grayon, bestirs thyself in circles large, and the descent be little. Think that the novel burden which thou hast, even as the little vessel shoves from shore, backward, still backward, so hence thence withdrew, and when he wholly felt himself afloat, there were his breast, and had been he turned his tail, and that extended like an eel he moved, and with his paws drew to himself the air. The greater fear I did not think there was, what time abandoned patent and the reins, whereby the heavens, as still appears, were scorched, and when the wretched Icarus his flanks felt stripped of his feathers by the melting wax, his father crying, Ah, ill way thou takest, then was my own, when I perceived myself on all sides in the air, and saw extinguished the sight of everything but of the monster. Onward he goeth, swimming slowly, wheels and descents, and I perceived in only by the wind upon my face and from below. I heard already on the right the whirlpool, making a horrible crashing under us, whence I thrust out my head, with eyes cast downward. Then was I still more fearful of the abyss, because I fires beheld, and heard laments, whereat I trembled all the closer cling. I saw then, for before I had not seen it, the turning and descending, by great horrors that were approaching upon divers side, and the falcon who had long been on the wing, who without seeing either lore or bird, maketh the falconer say, Ah me, thou stoopest, and descendeth wearily, whence he started swiftly through the 100 circles and alights far from his master, sullen and disdainful. Even though did Grayon place us on the bottom, close to the basis, round-hewn rock, and being disencumbered of our persons, he sped away on arrow from the string. And that concludes Dante Inferno, Canto 17. If you like this content and like to support it, please head on over to Patreon. That is www.patreon.com/shortstoryscene. I'd like to thank my patron Drac for your help, and thank you for listening, and see you next episode. Bye.